Guys, this is Chuck with BMW Blog. Join us as we're at the BMW Performance Center.
And we're here to test the all-new 2021 G82 M4 against the 2020 F82 M4. Both cars are manual transmission. We're going to drive them on the racetrack, we're going to autocross them, and we're going to drift them.
BMW is just now introducing their 6th generation of M3, and now they call them M4 when they're in two doors. This will be the 2nd generation M4. However, it's the 6th iteration of M3, M4 cars, going back to the E30, E36, E46, E92, F82, and now finally the G82.
G82 M4 comes with the S58 inline turbocharged 6-cylinder, and it's good for 473 horsepower, 406 foot-pounds of torque. Now, if you spec the M4 competition, it comes with 503 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. However, you only get an automatic. BMW has never before had such a big differentiation between the two models.
So a lot has been said about the grille, so I won't really bore you to tears with it, but I think these look a lot better on the M cars than they do in the 430. But if you go over here and look at the car we've been driving, the metallic black really makes it a lot more subtle. But I'm definitely getting used to it, and it does seem to kind of fit the character of the car, and it is, you know, still a little bang in your face. But I really think that the kidney grills, I mean, it's almost as if, you know, the shock you got with BMW back in the days of the bangle, people called it the bangle butt. When you first saw it, you about had a heart attack, and then you realized that it was, you know, they needed to make a change from their design. But I'm definitely getting used to it, and I definitely think that these kidney grills really look good with the M cars. And the other thing to keep in mind is that they really got rid of the dome. There used to be a power dome right in the middle, but the dome is gone now. And along the side, it's all very aerodynamic. You can even see right there's the little vents for the air breathers, so it puts a little air curtain along the edge of the car so that the air flows better. Nice little M badging. You can see here is M4 without it being a competition, and then here's the badge that you'll get if you have a competition package, so you will get a different little M label right there. This car does have the carbon fiber exterior package, and it comes with mirror caps there. It comes with really gorgeous looking carbon fiber intake inlets in here, and then let me show you in the back where you get some more carbon fiber. You do get this carbon fiber strip here. Is new. I'll show it to you on the yellow car because it really stands out there. And then you get a carbon fiber diffuser right here along the bottom, which is pretty sweet looking. Okay, so on this one you can see this is a carbon fiber piece you get versus the other yellow car has just a solid black piece there. Coming around the back, I really like the flowing taillights and how they flow right on into the trunk, and how that whole beam is just one solid piece. It looks really cool. Thought I'd show you the differences of the headlights. This is a standard headlight from them. It is still, it's hard to see, but right there it says BMW LED right up in here. But you'll see it says LED there, and it gives you this little gorgeous daylight running lights right there. And then over here, San Paulo yellow metallic has laser headlights, and you can see that they look quite a bit different on the bottom and how they come out. Pretty nice shifting pattern. It does change your console a little bit, pushes the iDrive stuff down because you lose some space to be able to fit the 6-speed manual transmission. It's a little smaller there. Nice M buttons. Program one, I have one is aggressive and the other one is super aggressive. Thought I'd highlight the carbon fiber on these, super nice. The deviated stitching on the steering wheel, it's good size, good size, but it's not overly thick. For a while BMW was getting crazy with how thick their steering wheels were.
I can't go without mentioning how good these carbon bucket seats are. At only $3,800, they're an amazing bargain. They are kind of cumbersome to get in and get out, but I haven't really sat in any other seat in any other BMW that hold you as well around a racetrack as these seats. You literally just drop into them, and then your body is locked into them. Legs lock in down in the cushions, and you literally cannot shake yourself out of them. The only thing they're missing really are 6-point harnesses.
So everybody knows about the car's look. Let's go see what it's like to drive it out on a racetrack. So here we are about to go on BMW's Performance Center, their little racetrack. It's a really tight, almost like an autocross style course, but it's shaped like in a giant kidney bean. And right now we got F82 M4 as our camera car. People were concerned about the steering on this thing. They don't need to be concerned. The steering is dialed in. This gives you nice feedback. It's nice and thick on the hand. Gives you great grip for a lot of tight turns like we're doing right now. And it gives you confidence where you're placing the front end of the car. Sweet. I was told 2 laps, but this is number 4. This is awesome. All right, we're pulling in. I'm going to readjust the cameras, and we're going to do that again.
While I was moving the cameras, we were treated to quite the show while BMW performance drivers were giving rides to the participants. Next up, we handed the cars over to Mike Renner, BMW Performance Center's pro driver, and had him set some lap times in both cars.
So Mike, tell us the differences between the F82 you just did and the G82 M4 you just ran on.
Both cars are a lot of fun and fantastic to drive. Great driving dynamics. But the thing you'll notice about this car is, of course, it does have a little more power for sure. You'll notice the power, but also in the steering responsiveness. Maybe this car weighs a little more than the other one, but it turns in quicker. It's much more responsive to the steering input on turn-in.
Yeah, in certain segments it definitely looked faster, that's for sure. And when we timed it out, it did beat the older car by about a half a second.
Yeah, and this is a small course, so you know, a couple of tenths is a pretty big deal on a course this size.
This F82 M4 we tested was an Austin Yellow with competition package, executive package, and rang in at an MSRP of $78,585. Its 3-liter turbocharged 6-cylinder S55 motor cranks out 444 horsepower. Next up were some 0 to 100 mile per hour runs in both cars. Performance numbers for the two cars were very similar. In fact, it really came down to if you got a better launch than the other car as far as who would come out on top going 0 to 100. I found that the G82 actually seemed to be a little bit easier to launch than the F82. I found the G82 M4's power delivery to be rather linear, and it would pull hard all the way to the red line. With the last generation M4, it just seemed like the power was too much for the chassis. By that I mean the car had a harder time putting the power down without spinning the wheels.
I do still love the F82 M3. This is a 2020 with a ton of options and with a manual, and now provides a real good head-to-head of what the two cars are like. This older one is more punchy in terms of this. The power delivery seems to be a little peakier. It spikes faster, and sometimes it makes it a little harder to control. But both are an absolute blast.
M drift mode. Click here to see a video we did on this cool thing that BMW did for the M3 and M4. And we have a detailed explanation and demonstration in that video. And as far as the handling goes, the most noticeable thing was that the G82 M4 had better initial turn-in, and it seemed to have better bite on the front end when you were turning in. Though we did notice the performance figures were very similar between the two cars because the G82 has gained some weight even though it had some extra power. Comparing the performance of the two cars, it just seems to me that the G82 2021 M4 is much better at putting the power down, and its chassis is much more composed compared to the 2020 M4.
Next up, we're going to take this and drive it in the gorgeous country roads outside of the factory and the Performance Center to see what it's like when it's not on the racetrack. Depress your foot on the clutch. Come over here, find the bright red start-stop engine button. And here we go. You can see every time I start it, it defaults into efficient with respect to the throttle, comfort shocks, comfort steering, and comfort brakes. But if you change it with one of the M1 buttons, it's going to ask you to confirm that you did it, and then it changes stuff to Sport Plus, and you can hear how much better the exhaust now sounds. Speedometer on the left, tachometer on the right. Kind of a totally different look for BMW now. If you hit the M mode, you will get this, and I don't know if you can see it right there. We'll try to go right there is the rev count. On the racetrack, the thing handles incredibly well, and it's the environment, you know, obviously it was designed for, but it's also designed for the street. So let's go see how it is like to drive it out on the street and see if you could really live with this car as your only car if you wanted to do commuting and you wanted to go to the racetrack. I think that's really, to me, where the BMW M3 and M4 shine, is the dual purpose vehicle that does both things incredibly well. There is a lot of body motion with the car. It tips back and forth under hard acceleration. I know you can't probably see that on the video, but I'm kind of surprised about that. On these small country roads, the car just gobbles them up. This thing is meant for like high-speed cruising. It would be fantastic to take it across the country. I mean, it's got so much power, even though this is a non-competition package. This one in particular has a 6-speed manual transmission, and it is super slick shifting. The throws are a little longer than I'd like, but they're better than some of the older BMWs I've driven that had a long throw. This is maybe a shortened lever, and so that maybe it's not going as far, but it feels a lot better. It's short and stubby and easy to throw it around, but the travel's a little longer than I like personally. I was fortunate to be able to drive the M4 competition right before I drove this one, and it's an automatic transmission, and honestly I think of everything I was most worried about, like these two cars. I've driven every single generation of the M3. I've driven them all. They all have much different characters, different personalities. This one is a big brute. This thing weighs a ton. It weighs more than any of the other M3s, M4s that have ever been made, but BMW somehow works their magic with controlling the weight, and you know, you don't really notice it much, maybe except for an autocross style course where you're trying to throw the car back and forth. But you know, highway cruising, you know, small backcountry roads like what this is right now, absolutely fantastic, super comfortable. A little bit more roomy than the last generation. I was concerned about it being an automatic, and in the competition package, it made me kind of wonder, like, have we come full circle? Because if you go back in the E36 M3, they had an automatic transmission, and it is interesting that we've gone back to that now. I think that these cars put out so much torque down low. Maybe the DCT couldn't handle it, I don't know. But the DCT was an event. When you drove that thing, you knew that you're driving a sports car. It would bang you in the back. You know, the automatic, I find, has a little bit smoother shifting, even when you put it in the most aggressive, like S3 shifting pattern. The manual, to me, though, solves all those problems. It's, you know, it sits perfectly right where your hand is. The clutch pedal has got just the perfect amount of travel, perfect amount of feedback. It does release kind of high up in its clutch release points, a little high, but you get used to it pretty quick, and it's just where it is. The car I've been driving the last week had a much lower release point, so it's just a very rewarding car to drive. On ramp. Sorry, I'll be right back. And now we're at the legal speed limit again. All right, so I thought we should talk spec for a minute. Specifically, what I think you should order if you want to go the ultimate enthusiast route, which I think is very much like this. Oh, I love this car. I think I would go with the manual transmission, rear-wheel drive only. I think it's going to be the most authentic experience you can have to what BMW initially started making M3s and M4s like, meaning, you know, front engine, rear drive, you know, no all-wheel drive. So I'd either go that route with these bucket seats and probably not a lot else, or if, you know, if you didn't think you're going to really do much track and you had to take your family everywhere, I would probably get the M3 sedan. I would get it in the competition version, and I would get an all-wheel drive and probably skip the bucket seats. So you can either go one way with this or the other. You know, BMW's like taking a page out of the Porsche playbook, in that they're a lot of things, very customizable in terms of the way you can order them. I was a little worried when they put the automatic transmission in the car that it would change the character a lot, especially after experiencing those DCTs. And it does. It is not as brutal, which I guess is probably a good thing. I think if you're going to get an automatic transmission in M3 or an M4, get the all-wheel drive. I mean, I've driven the rear-wheel drive M4 competition automatic. It's a great car, puts power down well, but I think if you add the traction to the front with all that horsepower, I mean 500 horsepower, you put it to all four wheels, you're going to have a killer car. So if it were me, I would get an M3 competition package with an all-wheel drive, or I would stick something like this and stick with a regular M and do a 6-speed. I do like that BMW gives us the option. You know, not every car company does that anymore. I mean, manuals are getting more and more rare. The other thing I sort of worried about with this car was, what were the seats going to be like? You know, were they going to be comfortable? Are they a total pain in the ass to get in and get out of? And they are a little interesting to get into, because you have to kind of lower your body, you know, bring your body over and then lower it down. You can't slide into them. You like kind of, your body falls down into them once you get over far enough. Or some people will slide across the side bolster, which if they do that, they're going to wear that edge out. I lift my body up as I'm coming over and clear the side bolster, and once I have this side bolster cleared, then once you're in them, though, these seats are really comfortable. They do have adjustable side bolsters right around the mid-waist area, and they, for me, I find like you get really pinched into them, especially noticeable on the racetrack where you're throwing a lot of weight around and you're hanging on, and the less your body moves when you're in a performance maneuver, the more you can control the car. So, you know, these seats really do make a difference if you're going to track your car. If you're not ever going to track your car, I would probably skip them, just because you know, your legs, not only do you kind of limit your motion of your torso, you also limit the motion of your legs, because you can't really sit sideways with your legs. They go where they go in those little slots, and that's it. Now, if it were me, I would still order these seats, because they're fantastic, and they clearly have, you know, slots for shoulder harnesses if you do take your car to the track. This car just sounds so good. I like how on the M Sport it shows you what gear you're in. There's third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so you never have any question on a manual transmission what gear you're in. When it's in non-M mode, which is here, your gear actually shows up down there. So there's fifth, there's fourth, there's third. Time to get on the interstate. Beat this truck. I've just touched your M button again, and it goes from all your sport settings that you programmed. I currently have Sport Plus programmed for the throttle, Sport for the shocks, Sport for the steering, and Sport for the brakes. When I hit M1 again, it turns all that off, it puts the throttle back at efficient, which I don't really like.
It's mind-blowing how good this chassis is on the 2021 M4. The front end turns in better, it accelerates better out of the hole, it puts power down better. Add in to the fact that you can get a manual transmission, a rear-wheel drive, and a turbocharged engine that pulls hard all the way to redline. And you owe it to yourself to drive this car if you get the opportunity. It is an amazing driving experience.
Anyway, if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our BMW Blog YouTube channel. Cheers!